Good morning. Good to have you with us on another busy Tuesday. I'm Joe Fryer.
And I'm Savannah Sellers. Thank you for starting your morning with us. We are going to begin our show with those new developments in the investigation into Sunday's mass shooting at Australia's famous Bondi Beach. It happened at an event celebrating the Jewish festival of Hanukkah. Police say the two suspected gunmen, a father and son duo, appeared to be inspired by ISIS and had both traveled to an extremist hotspot in the Philippines last month.
At least 15 people were killed and dozens were injured, making this Australia's deadliest mass shooting in 30 years. Authorities say they're investigating this incident as a terror attack against the Jewish community. Here's more of what they had to say about the investigation.
The reasons why they went to the Philippines and the purpose of that and where they went when they were there is under investigation at the moment. I also confirmed that the vehicle, which is registered to the younger male, contained IEDs, but I also confirmed that it contained 2 homemade ISIS flags.
NBC News correspondent Hala Garani joins us now with the latest on this. So Hala, just tell us what more we're learning about the alleged gunmen and their potential motivation, and why might this trip to the Philippines be of so much interest to investigators?
Well, the Philippines and the southern part of the country, there are ISIS-linked groups that are pretty active there. There's a group called Abu Sayyaf, and they are ideologically aligned with groups like ISIS. And so if this father and son, this Naveed and Javeed Akram, traveled to the southern Philippines to receive, according to some reports, some sort of training in how to handle weapons and how to carry out this type of attack, it would be extremely significant. And it also would be something that you could argue authorities might have missed as well. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of time here to conduct sort of analyses of whether or not authorities should have perhaps had one or both of these shooters on their radar. But interestingly, this is a country that has very strict gun laws, and yet the father, Javeed Akram, had gun licenses. And there are proposals now to tighten these gun control laws even more. So, for example, to not allow a single person to own more than a certain number of guns and that type of thing, because there is really widespread consternation at this terrorist attack on Bondi.
What's the latest on the injured victims who were hospitalized in the attack? And also tell us sort of just how the local Jewish community is reacting here and coming together.
Right. Well, it's the local Jewish community. It's Jewish communities around the world who are saying that this is something that they feel is the culmination of many months and years, in some cases, of what they say is a rising tide of anti-Semitism. There are 22 patients that are still receiving care for their injuries in several Sydney hospitals. Now, we understand some are in stable condition, but some are in critical condition as well. One patient, for example, is receiving care at the Sydney Eye Hospital. 2 patients are in critical condition. 3 are in critical but stable at another hospital called St. Vincent. So you see, it's still touch and go for many of these people who were victims in this attack. Joe and Savannah.
And Hala, we have been talking about this act of heroism from Ahmed al-Ahmed. He's a Syrian Muslim immigrant who actually disarmed one of the gunmen during the attack. We've seen the video of this. He was then shot. He's being treated for those gunshot wounds in the hospital. Got a visit from Australia's Prime Minister earlier today. Tell us about that and just the praise he's getting from so many people.
Well, I have to tell you, I have watched this video more than a few times because it is remarkable to see someone with no weapons training just basically tackle a heavily armed shooter like this. Ahmed is 43 years old. He's a fruit salesman in Australia. According to reports, he emigrated to Australia several years ago. His parents are Syrian refugees. The Australian Prime Minister had this to say about his bravery.
His bravery is an inspiration for all Australians. He is a very humble man. Tomorrow he will undergo further surgery. His mother and father are here visiting him from Syria, and I was able to meet them as well. They're very proud parents. Ahmed al-Ahmed represents the best of our country.
Well, we are also seeing reports that other people tried to intervene with their cars, or we saw some dash cam video as well. So Ahmed, though, is the one who tackled that armed terrorist, and it's just incredible to think that he has saved potentially many lives by acting the way he did and disabling and neutralizing that attacker when he did. Back to you.
He might be humble, but he is so worthy of all the praise he's receiving from all around the globe. Hala, thank you for your reporting. Appreciate it.
Now let's get to our other big story of the morning, the shocking deaths of Hollywood legend Rob Reiner and his wife, Michele. A source close to the family tells NBC News the couple was fatally stabbed inside their Los Angeles home Sunday afternoon.
Now the couple's 32-year-old son, Nick Reiner, is in police custody. He's being held on suspicion of murder. This morning, we're learning new details. That includes an incident the night before their deaths when sources tell us Nick made several guests uncomfortable with his behavior at a Hollywood holiday party that he attended with his parents. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky has the latest from L.A. Morgan, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. We are outside the home that belongs to Rob Reiner, and here we are less than 48 hours after this horrific incident, and the 32-year-old son of Reiner, Nick, is now behind bars being held without bail, suspected of his parents' murder. We know that today, detectives with LAPD will be presenting their findings, the evidence that they've uncovered over the last 48 hours or so, to prosecutors. However, formal charges are not anticipated against the 32-year-old Reiner until some point tomorrow. But we do expect to learn much more today on what could have led to the very murder of Rob Reiner and his wife, Michele. And what's interesting is that according to two sources, the Reiners were with their son on Saturday night at a party hosted by Conan O'Brien. And it was at that party that those sources tell NBC News that Nick appeared to be behaving strangely and making other guests feel uncomfortable. At one point, engaging in a conversation with Bill Hader, the comedian, former SNL star, who had to tell him that this was a private conversation, at which point he stormed away. That scene was only exacerbated by another argument with his own parents, and it's the source's belief that that boiled over into Sunday into some sort of argument that led to the fatal stabbing of both Rob Reiner and his wife, Michele. The investigation is still very much ongoing. The family has put out a brief statement asking for privacy during this time of incredible loss. This as tributes continue to pour in for 78-year-old Reiner, a Hollywood icon, known for, of course, his hit TV show All in the Family, but also just so many films that he had a hand in creating, whether he was a director or producer or a writer. That is why fans absolutely mourning the loss of him today. We'll send it back to you.
All right, Morgan Chesky, thank you.
Now let's bring in NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos to help put this case into perspective. Obviously, just such a tragedy, Danny, and we want to get into some of the technicalities, the details here. So currently, Nick Reiner is being held on suspicion of murder. Explain to us what that means, why that's what it is, rather than just going straight to filing formal charges. Are they waiting on some type of information?
They're not so much waiting as they are investigating, because they have to decide what exactly the charges are going to be. There's no real rush. There's no statute of limitations on murder. And even for all other serious crimes, we'd be nowhere near the running of the statute. So they're going to investigate. They can hold him for 48 hours. And then they will decide what charges to file. And at that point, he goes from suspect to defendant.
Right now, he's being held without bail. Do you expect a judge will eventually set some sort of bail in this case? Would it be incredibly high? What usually happens in a case like this?
Procedurally, right now, he's being administratively held with no bail. The judge can't simply, at least in California, say, this is murder, so no bail. Once he is charged, he will be arraigned, and then there will actually be a formal bail hearing. And in California, the standard is essentially, is the presumption great? Is the evidence compelling? And if it is, then possibly he could continue to be held with no bail. But this right now, his holding procedurally is only an administrative type hold, because murder is such a serious crime, and it's such a short period of time that he's being held without bail, that constitutionally speaking, he can be held for these couple days with no bail. So this is no surprise at all.
Everybody in LA knows, right, who Rob Reiner is. A lot of people, I guess I should say. This is obviously getting a ton of attention. Is this the type of thing where if Nick is charged and it does go to trial, a defense attorney would ask for change of venue?
A defense attorney might. I don't think it would be granted. Remember, this is L.A., as you pointed out. This is a place that is used to celebrities. So the idea that people may have heard of the murder and may have been tainted by the evidence, this is a jurisdiction like New York City that deals with a lot of high-profile cases. That being said, a defense attorney might try it to get it out of this jurisdiction. But the problem with that is that you might get it into a jurisdiction that is even a less favorable jury pool when it comes to murder, typically more rural or suburban. If you're a defense attorney, you don't want to be in a suburban area where there is less murder or crimes like this. You might just be better off staying in the jurisdiction you're in.
What are you keeping an eye on in the coming days?
Evidence that emerges. I'm very curious to hear about the party at Conan O'Brien's party the night before. If for no other reason, then I think it's going to be fascinating to get a glimpse into his state of mind and his behavior, whether it was erratic or noticeable. It seems so far that it was. And of course, in this day and age, we don't know it now, but I am certain you're going to see digital evidence emerging, whether that's video, cell phone, all of the kinds of evidence that we are now not only accustomed to, but that we expect in the modern era.
Deanna Savalos, thank you so much, as always.
4 suspects are now behind bars in connection with an alleged plot to set off explosives in Los Angeles.
We're about to show you this FBI surveillance video. This is of the group in the Mojave Desert, where the suspects allegedly went to build and test homemade explosive devices before their arrest last week. The Justice Department says that the suspects are members of an anti-capitalist group that's called the Turtle Island Liberation Front. The alleged plan was to conduct a series of bombings at multiple targets in the Los Angeles area, beginning on New Year's Eve.
The plan stated that the IEDs would be complex pipe bombs. It included instructions on how to manufacture the bombs and contained guidance on how to avoid leaving evidence behind that could be traced back to them.
NBC News senior justice reporter Ryan Riley is following this one for us. Ryan, good morning. So court filings said the FBI agents arrested them before they even completed the process of making a functional explosive. Attorney General Pam Bondi posted on X saying the alleged plot was discovered after an intense investigation. What do we know about how investigators learned about the plan and then tried to stop it?
Well, it was because the FBI had eyes and ears on this investigation pretty early on. There was a confidential human source who was involved with this. It's unclear at which point that confidential human source was inserted into this group. But then there, on top of that, there is an FBI undercover employee. And what was interesting, the individual who's heading the office out there, who is very much in the Trump ethos and is a strong supporter of Trump, announced that actually he credited Donald Trump with the September memo that said the partial credit is deserved to the Trump administration for setting off this initial memo, which led in part to this investigation. And that's a very quick turnaround for the Justice Department to bring charges and have this sort of undercover sting operation going not too long after Donald Trump sort of signaled that he wanted left-wing groups targeted. So I expect that's something that down the line we're going to hear a lot from defense attorneys about. But the federal government has a pretty strong case that these individuals were interested in setting off these bombs on New Year's Eve.
Ryan, I imagine for most of our viewers, it's the first time they're hearing of the Turtle Island Liberation Front. We also heard yesterday from those authorities during that press conference about a sect even within this group called the Order of the Black Lotus. Tell us what we know at this point about this group, the beliefs, the goals here.
Yeah, they were pro-Palestinian. The Turtle Island reference is sort of a reference to all of North America being stolen land was their idea there. So, it's a very left-wing sort of group is what the underlying ideology of this is. And, of course, that comports exactly with the kinds of cases that the Trump administration is very interested in bringing forward. So, I think that evidence from this case is very strong. Obviously, when you have all these individuals sort of joining in and bringing components to the effort here. But, there was a high degree of FBI involvement, and we've seen in other cases involving FBI sting operations, that's what there's a lot of focus on. It's a very high bar to get, say, an entrapment defense against, and to have an entrapment defense overturn one of these convictions or stop one of these prosecutions from going forward. The ball sort of is in prosecutors' court there, and I think that they have a lot of advantages there. But I think that's what defense attorneys are going to say down the line. They're going to basically argue that, hey, this was just a political effort. They were targeted because of their political beliefs, because those are the types of individuals that Donald Trump expressly wanted to go after.
Ryan, these 4 suspects did make their first court appearance yesterday. Anything else we're learning from the criminal complaint? And just when it comes to the legal process, what's next?
Yeah, so no pleas were entered thus far. There's going to be some future detention hearings to determine whether there's enough evidence and they are enough of a threat to the public to keep them behind bars until trial, which is obviously something that would give the prosecution a lot more power there when you actually keeping these individuals behind bars. So I'd expect a spirited debate on that going forward. And, I think one of the things that the defense attorneys are potentially going to argue here is that these explosive devices, while if that's what the allegations are true from the government is saying, is were not actually intended to kill anyone. They were intended to sort of be a political message going off and aiming these at these 2 separate companies that this sort of small group did not have that had strong disagreements with on policy issues.
All right, Ryan Riley, thank you so much.
Well, overnight, the Trump administration announced another series of attacks on alleged drug boats in the Pacific. The U.S. military says 8 alleged narco-terrorists were killed yesterday in strikes on 3 vessels in the Eastern Pacific. U.S. Southern Command said the boats were moving along known drug routes and were operated by U.S.-designated narco-terror organizations. In a social media post, they said the strikes were ordered by Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The Trump administration defended the attacks, saying they are critical in preventing the flow of fentanyl into the U.S. President Trump actually signed an executive order yesterday declaring the synthetic drug a weapon of mass destruction. Now, that move strengthens the government's legal power in defending its efforts against alleged drug trafficking.
In Rhode Island, the manhunt continues for the gunman who opened fire on the campus of Brown University 4 days ago. Yesterday, authorities released these new surveillance videos of a person of interest who was seen near the Ivy League school just hours before the attack that killed 2 students and injured 9 others. On Saturday, a man detained in connection with the shooting was released on Sunday after police said they did not have enough evidence to hold him or charge him. Well, now the university and its surrounding community remain on edge as investigators renew their search. NBC News correspondent Aaron McLaughlin is in Providence, Rhode Island with the latest. Aaron, good morning.
Good morning, Joe. Officials released that new surveillance footage showing the so-called person of interest hours before the attack. And while they've been combing through ring camera footage taken from homes and businesses in the area, the Attorney General tells me they still do not have a clear image of the gunman's face. This morning, authorities in Rhode Island are trying to reassure the public as the manhunt intensifies for the gunman responsible for the deadly mass shooting at Brown University.
We want to make sure that all Rhode Islanders know that everything that is physically possible is being done.
Police released this new footage of a so-called person of interest. The man, dressed all in black and wearing a mask, was seen walking near the Ivy League campus just 2 hours before the attack.
The sooner we can identify that person, the sooner we can, I think, blow this case open.
We're also learning more about the weapon used in the shooting. Investigators say several rounds were fired from a 9mm handgun. The manhunt resumed Monday with an enhanced police presence near campus. FBI agents searched through the trash, sifted through the snow, and canvassed neighborhoods around the university, looking for any new video or evidence that could lead to the arrest of the man who opened fire Saturday, killing 2 students and wounding 9. All of it coming after investigators announced they released an individual over the weekend they once believed could have been connected to the attack. Rhode Island's Attorney General Peter Nerona explained why they let him go.
We didn't have enough to charge him, and we didn't have enough to hold him. And I think that says a lot about the state of the evidence.
As the hunt for answers continues, the Brown community is mourning the lives lost. Ella Cook was a sophomore from Alabama.
She encouraged and lifted up those around her. But at Brown University, she was an incredible light.
And freshman Mohammad Aziz Umerzakov from Uzbekistan just recently graduated high school in Virginia. His sister telling NBC News, "We don't want him to end up being a number. We want everyone to see his face. We want everyone to know his name.
8 of the victims remain in the hospital this morning, 1 in critical but stable condition. The FBI is offering a $50,000 reward for information leading to an arrest. The Attorney General tells me why they believe the gunman was acting alone inside the building behind me. They have not ruled out the possibility that he was getting help outside. Joe.
All right, Aaron, thank you.
Well, this morning, the Pacific Northwest is expecting more rain from another system that's coming on the heels of last week's atmospheric river that deluged the region. Officials say residents should now brace for yet another dangerous atmospheric river system to fall on already saturated ground. The initial wave of storms drenched the region really at historic levels. I mean, devastating highways, forcing nearly 100,000 people to evacuate their homes. The National Weather Service reports that parts of western Washington alone saw more than 16 inches of rain. If you take a look, you can also see those same rains broke up an earthen levee, prompting an evacuation order across a suburban area just south of Seattle, placing around 46,000 people at risk there. NBC News correspondent Steve Patterson has the latest from Tukwila, Washington.
Yeah, this was quite a scare for residents who are already dealing with submerged communities, with levees that are stressed, with really an entire system that is stressed by a tremendous amount of water from these series of atmospheric rivers that we had last week leading into this week. Thankfully, the levee breach has been plugged up. That's according to the governor, as well as all the resources that are on scene there. The breach was small, is about 3.5 miles from where I'm standing now. We're on the Green River. This is Tukwila. It's a community near Seattle. You can see behind me, I mean, just how much the river has surged up. Those trees should not be submerged as they are, but it didn't lead to worse. When we originally saw that breach, there was a go now warning, a level 3 evacuation for residents in this area. At first it was 46,000 people. They then tamped that down to about 6,000, then 1,000, and then they finally were able to let that flash flooding advisory expire, and they were able to cancel that go now advisory. However, they are not telling people to stop being vigilant. This is something that is a proof that the system, is still overstressed, right? There's a tremendous amount of water. It is saturating the ground. It is putting stress on those levees, obviously. Thankfully, heavy machinery was able to get in there, plug it up. We saw sandbags in that area as well, and the governor, again, giving the all clear, thankfully. But again, we have more weather moving in. There's another system that could bring consistent rain on through into Wednesday and Thursday, which obviously further complicates what's going on the ground here. 9 million people still under some form of a flood advisory in this area. It makes things a whole lot worse heading on into this week. Send it back to you.
All right, Steve, thank you so much.
We've got more on the flooding in the Pacific Northwest and the potential for another storm with your Morning News Now weather.
Andrew Lastman's with us in studio. Andrew, good morning.
Hi, guys. Good morning to you. You heard Steve say it. We've got additional rain on the way, and that storm system that we're going to watch really make way onshore through the day today is going to eventually end up being a cross-country storm system. So let's start with what we've got going on across the Pacific Northwest. We've got that flood threat you just heard that's going to last through the day today. You can see Seattle still included in that as we gear up for additional rainfall. Some of those showers happening now, but here's a big push of moisture that happens as the day goes on. That Pacific front slides inland. It brings with it the heavy rain. We know the rivers have been swollen. We've seen some minor improvements as we went through through the weekend, this past weekend. But of course, they're still swollen, and we're still going to be watching for any additional rain to really cause additional problems that we've already seen. By the time we get into tomorrow, the system's a quick mover, so it's going to slide into the northern plains, and then we see some of that snow and additional strong winds, which I'll show you kind of working across parts of the northern Rockies. So heads up there. As we look ahead to Thursday, big picture, you can see we've got heavy rain stretching from Ohio basically to the Gulf Coast. We'll see some snowfall and maybe some wintry mix kind of happening across parts of the Great Lakes in the Midwest as well. But this likely going to cause some difficulty when it comes to any travel. And then by the time Friday rolls around, that front will work offshore, but we'll still have to deal with some rain and some additional snow across parts of the east. So it's the cold winds and snow around the Great Lakes, and then it's some of that rain up and down the East Coast. If we look back to the Pacific Northwest, though, what we're dealing with in the short term, additional rainfall anywhere from 2 to 8 inches. We could see some higher amounts. And again, we know the rivers are still swollen. We know that we have that really potential for some of this flash flooding to occur through the day today. And you can see where we've got the slight risk from Astoria to Portland down to Eugene and south to Crescent City. So heads up for folks in those areas. Again, still dealing with the swollen rivers. You can see not quite as many under that major flood stage, but still there's a couple. And we've got a whole lot under moderate and even more under minor flooding, guys. So something that we'll watch in the short term for folks in that area.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.